Hi, my name is Roshni Gadja and welcome to Lift as We Rise. Today being the 1st of June 2023. Welcome to the second half of this year. And today is particularly special from Stratostude Consulting side. That's, of course, the business behind Lift as We Rise. We turned 5 today. And I thought, well, no better day than to talk about Formula One in School South Africa, which is part of our nonprofit organization, Future Ones. And today, my guest in the studio is someone who is exceptionally experienced in the field of automotives and motorsport as far as research and development goes. But Aashish Salian, who is my guest today, is an associate from the World Judging Panel in the F1 in Schools competition. So, Aashish, it's a pleasure to welcome you and have this chat with you today.
Hi, Roshni. Thanks for having me.
Ashish, I think we must share with our listeners that earlier today, we had a group of interested participants, sponsors, and really stakeholders on a Zoom call to discuss Formula One in schools. Of course, we launched F1 in School South Africa at the Knysna Hill Climb in May. And Ashish experienced for the first time South Africa's technical issues due to power outages or load shedding. And he was absolutely gracious. Long story short, we managed to finish the webinar, but we just thought that to wrap it up nicely, package it, and share this with a wider audience, including those who were there this afternoon, we'd have this chat. So, Ashish, again, thank you for making time. Let's kick it off. What does F1 in schools mean to you?
Um, I think F1 in schools. There was a tagline when I was just getting the project. It says it's a life-changing experience, and I think to summarize, I think that's what F1 in schools is all about. It gives you opportunities. It puts you in different positions and platform where you get access to sort of do a lot of things and learn a lot of things and grow yourself. So I think that's what I can say about it. It means to me it's a life changing experience, and I think it's very true. It helped me find my passion and grow different skills that I feel in an early age. Being exposed to those things has helped me develop the person I've become now. So yeah.
Ashish, South Africa is automotive crazy and also has
Yep.
a rich and long history of motorsports. Having said that, there are a large number of South Africans, young and old, who've never had the experience of going to a race, who've also never
Yeah.
had the experience of owning a car or driving a car. And that's the reality of our country. What attracted you to F1 in schools?
Yeah, it's a good thing. Actually, going back to Kailami track, I still remember like some of the people I speak to who have seen the races and always talk about racing in South Africa and the culture. I know there's a lot of racing culture down there, so it's quite exciting that it's starting over there and we're getting involved because I know there are petrol heads everywhere. But to be honest, for me, what made me get into the project was um, initially it was just seeing the cars race and seeing something dynamic happen in front of us and knowing that you contributed for that thing to happen. I think that idea excited me a lot. It's actually converting all the ideas I had in my head that was always just doodling or sketches to now becoming something tangible that's now racing with someone else. So this whole, as a kid, I just found it fascinating to be working on those things and bringing those things in reality. And yeah, that's how it started. That's what got me hooked.
So when yourself and or your team heard about F1 in schools and you put your hand up and you were in there, what goal did you set for yourself? Why did you invest in such a intensive program? When I say intensive, for on average, Ashish, we spoke to those contestants, and it takes about 4 years for someone to go from start to world finals ready. That doesn't mean that the world finals yet, and that's just the starting point. We've
Yeah,
still got to go to university, get our degree,
yeah.
and then hope that our hard work and diligence pays off with a job in motorsports, particularly in F1. So, what goals did you set for yourselves as a team?
Yeah, it's quite funny because initially our first goal was to design a car in CAD. I still remember how we were excited and we were pumped to actually do the project, and that excitement lasted for a week because then we realized, okay, we need to do real work and make the project, and we were asked to design using professional designing software that's used by industrial designers and automotive people, and basically like a professional engineering software. It sounded so intimidating as kids to actually go through it, and we didn't believe in ourselves at first, and we just found that whole it's way different from designing cars on paper. So at first it was very intimidating to get into that process of knowing yes we can do it if we actually find the resources. So at that stage in the project in our country it was just the early adopters, so we didn't have many resources, so we resorted to YouTube tutorials and just figuring out what the software is and just seeing if we can get around it. So the first goal I still remember was just making a car on the software. That was the first. And once we achieved it, it took us 2 weeks, but we were able to do it. And once we've done it, we realized, hey, we have ourselves a Formula One car. We've designed a Formula One car using our own ideas, just looking at tutorials and putting it all together. And we saw that if we put our head to it and actually focus, we were able to achieve it. And that small achievement then translated into us taking the next step, which was getting sponsorship. So, because we had to raise funds, and now, so now our next goal was now finding sponsors and getting. And I still remember in the first year itself, we didn't know where to go. We didn't know what to look because it there was no other project that was similar to this. Teachers didn't know how to guide us essentially, and we were left to figure our own ideas. So I still remember what happened was we had a famous cricketer visit our school. This was back in 2009. His name is Kapil Dev. He won the cricket championship with India national team, and he had come to a school to promote Right to Play, which is like a non-profit organization, basically enabling kids who are not fortunate to have sort of play and sort of right to play as the name says. That was the goal. I think they sponsor Chelsea as well. So we were lucky enough to have him give us a speech in our school, and our heads started thinking, well, our next goal now is to get sponsorship, so we should catch him. And as kids, after we were waiting on the gate to make sure as soon as he's leaving, we catch him and we sort of jump in and give him a elevator pitch and try to get him a sponsor. So we were keen. We waited for half an hour. We caught him. We told him, look, we're a bunch of kids. We figured out how to make a car in professional engineering software, but we now need funds. I mean, it's sponsors to actually build a car and go for it. And we expected nothing from it. We just expected someone to shush us away, but on the contrary, he actually went, this sounds interesting. Here's my personal email ID. Send me your proposal and I'll have a look at it. So even now, speaking about it, it's just surreal because things like that doesn't happen that often. Like a famous world cricketer, and he wants to sponsor, like, sort of support our project. So we got to talking to him, and he was a petrolhead himself. And now, in hindsight, he currently partnered a Formula 4 team from India, and he's running a Formula 4 and Formula 3 team from India. So I think going back years, that was his passion, and he saw this kids trying to do it. That time he wanted to support us. So what he did for us, he actually got us in touch with one of the marketing managers from Puma, and they were very keen to sponsor us, and we bagged Puma as a sponsor. Now at that time it was unheard of, but it's again, we achieved a goal. We got a sponsor. We got Puma as a sponsor, and again, achieving that made it even more realistic. So right now, our levels of goals were being achieved in a very unrealistic space, but it was all happening. So we just stop thinking about now the next thing is going to be hard because we've done the unthinkable. So we just set our heads. So our next goal is now competing at the event, which was 3 weeks later. So with the sponsorship that we received, the car we built, we were ready to go for our first ever nationals, and we expect to dominate there. But we went there and realized we were one of the lowest teams. We had teams from Oman, some experienced teams with like fancy racing overalls and banners, and we just turned up there with a lot of Puma t-shirts and a fast car, and that's what we won. We won the fastest car in Dubai, became second fastest overall in UAE. We had a fast car because that was a goal. We had really good uniforms because Puma sponsored, and that was a goal. But we didn't set any other goals, which is project management, pit display, because we didn't even know that those things existed. We ran out of time. So the next goal we had was to come again and do all the things that we skimped on because we didn't know exist. So, that's how it is. To be honest, it wasn't a goal that motivated. It's the journey. The journey we went from being in that presentation and seeing the cars race to eventually learning how to design a car to get sponsorship, going to that first event and realizing we hadn't done enough and there's so many things we could have done. So coming back. And the second year, we did all the things we missed out on, but we realized we did it in a benchmark way. We didn't try to like exceed or try to be the best in things. So we had to come back the third year, now getting more money, bigger ideas, and actually thinking how we can increase the level of competition. So the whole process was a learning experience on how in real life as well, we always need to push the boundaries and keep. And it took us time to actually learn this from our own mistakes and come back stronger. So, like you said, on average time, I think I can vouch for it because it took us 4 years to reach world finals, and we won a lot of awards in the process. We won best team identity, fastest car. We got best portfolio, and one of the nationals, my car unofficially broke the world record as well. We did a time of 1.009, and that was the same time where one of the judges was Richard Noble, who actually built the Bloodhound SSE and Trust SSE, which has the land speed record. And giving a presentation to someone like him and explaining him about my car principle as a kid, but not knowing who the person is, and him just like being surprised how a kid knows so much physics. And I still remember he asked me, "Did you learn this in school?" And I said, "Nope." He's like, "Okay, you're gonna learn this in 3 more years. So when this comes in class, be excited for it." I was like, "Yes," but because that was the process. We were into building cars and we were trying to make it fast. We learned these principles, which curriculumly or academically we had to wait for so long. And to be honest, we would probably not even realize it because it didn't correlate to something. So that was the journey. The goal was always tiny, attainable things, which didn't feel attainable. But once we achieved it, it set us for bigger expectations, and we kept pushing the boundaries. Every small steps, every year, until the world finals as well. I'd say, which was again a whole different ballpark, but it was good experience learning. So yeah.
Wow, Ashish, there's so much you've said in it. So, of course, that any participating school will get the AutoCAD program loaded onto their computers. And since your program, I think things in F1 in schools have really evolved. So there's a lot more support available, lots more materials to help you design, make, test, and then race that car. And of course, the regulations have also tightened up a bit because these participants have become increasingly clever on marginal gains and pushing the boundaries. But wow, Ashish, from the red dot on the green field to the red starting lights, and those have merged. Um, and what you say is so powerful. So you didn't think you could raise the sponsors. You were particularly anxious about design, and you landed up winning a whole lot of awards. You got, a key sponsor on board, which you didn't think it would happen. And then, the third goal is particularly interesting, and we'll circle back to that a bit later: continuous improvement. It's that mindset that wants to go and find that extra hundredth of a second, even at the Formula One in schools level. Can you speak a bit about what did this mean to you in your development as a human, as a professional, as someone at school who's matured and now played on this world big stage?
Yeah, it's, I could say obsessive about details, I'd say is a good term to brand it, because the two different concept I can relate to this. First is actually the development of the car itself, right? We spend time traditionally at first, like I said, the challenge was making a car. And I still remember just following the tutorials, and the goal was to make my sketches into reality in CAD. That was my first attainable goals. And then that translated later for me to figure out, right, what are different things that I can make my car faster? And I started researching on different shapes, aerodynamic things, and I was looking at different competitors, what they were doing previous world finals, because that's always the benchmark. You always see what worked for someone else, learning for someone else's experiences. And I quickly found out I wasn't as skilled as some of the competitors. So my goal was trying to like replicate what they were trying to do in the CAD software. And that process, I realized I was learning more skills and more tools in the CAD, which just made me so much more better. Eventually, that became easy, and now I had the power to design any concepts I had. So we went away from now figuring out how to tackle the CAD anymore. Now we're in this level where this was years, like it took 2 years. The third year, now we're at a level where I need to define my own engineering process. How am I going to design my car? So we started from getting inspiration from different biomimicry items. I remember one point we had a dolphin shaped side pods, which we thought could get us some sort of ground effects. We got inspired by a beak of a bird, which could be, so there was our car had, usually our track is raced down 24 meters, and there's a sensor. So our idea was, if we have a protruding beak structure in front of our nose, that would be the first thing that hits the trigger. So we kind of save, let's say, maybe 100 mm of distance, and that's one way of making a car faster. So now we're talking about innovative ideas where we can redefine on what makes a car fast. That's the level we were in year three. But again, these are concepts, but they don't give you iterative gains. You don't. There's no process. It's just inspirational. You come with an idea. You don't know if it's an hit and miss. So the year four is where we eventually mature to point we realize, no, we need to have a continuous improvement and an iterative process where you go forward, you do testing, and you're just validating your results on track. And that's where the real, I'd say, the process I still use as a design engineer now started from. I realized we were doing minor changes, millimeter gains, seeing if it works and knowing if it's the right path, and then coming back and to drawing board if it doesn't, and we change those processes. So what happens is you're polishing your design and refining it. So it was a whole development in that 4 years that we, which where we started first just learning the software, to eventually, by the time we were in World Files, we were spending hours and months just changing millimeters in aerofoils and length just to get different drag coefficients and optimize a car. So this is the difference. So being that obsessive about measurements and getting the ideal thing, I think even comes down to now with different projects, with that precision. Because F1 in schools, being in that miniature scale, people often forget how precise some teams get. I still remember the weight limit being 55 grams back then during my level. I think now it's changed because of regulations. And the first year, we were just trying to be around the ballpark around 60 kgs. So it's like, yeah, we're close enough, but we can't help it. The second year, we were 55.8 grams. The third year, we were 55.0 dead. But then we saw some Germans actually have 54.5, and then we thought it's illegal to do that. But we saw that there was tolerance of plus or minus zero point 0.5 grams, We're like, well, why didn't we think of it? So to control that, I still remember what we had was we printed different stickers of FN in schools, and we had different weights on them with different thicknesses. So based on our car's weight, we would then put the FN in school sticker, which weighed sort of relative enough to make our cars weigh literally 54.5 grams. So that's sort of level precision we went to. Uh, and F1 in schools taught us to be that precise with things to get the maximum performance out of of anything, actually go to the limits. That's the whole side of, we can say, the process of building a car. But at the same time, just to give you an idea on how, like like a methodology of the same idea is, example, we won a lot of trophies and we won a lot of things, but we still never made it to world finals until the third year, and it was 3 years in competition. The fourth year we actually went back, not because we wanted to win, funny enough, because every year our goal was to go to the world finals. Fourth year we went to just collect one award, which is the fastest car award, because all the years we were too fast. We rolled the world record, but we had some regulation infringement. The other year our car was fast, but it was basically, it used to always miss the mark. There was some sort of thing. The first year we were fastest, but we had like teams from Oman come in, so we couldn't. Overall, we couldn't get the fastest car award because they were faster than us, sadly. So there was always sort of nuances in us getting the fastest car, although our car was always fast. So the only motivation for us to take part in our final year of school was to just go to the nationals, get the fastest car trophy, and just come back. So to do that project at that time, I still remember all we focused was getting funds, which was just enough to make two cars. I painted the car myself with rattle cans. So we're not talking about automotive high quality finish. It was literally like garage job, because all we cared about is making the car fast. And for uniforms, what we did was we went to the Nike store and we went to the clearance bin and bought five same looking t-shirts. Basically, all of them were in double XL size, and we stitched them in like and altered the sizes essentially for all of us to fit in. And we just printed some logos on and went racing essentially, kind of like a Haas story. And we were surprised because our budget, I think, was on total we spent 420 or $440 doing the whole project, because we had some parts left over from previous years competing, ball bearings and things like that, wheel systems. We designed a new car, so we spent money to manufacture the new cars, like literally $1 or $2 on the rattle cans. And we made some money by training our juniors and giving advice, sort of mentoring them through their project elements. So they sort of donated some money to our team, and we went racing with that money. So went to nationals, didn't expect anything, and the whole day we were just looking at a car. Is it's if it's on the top of the list, and that's all we cared about. We didn't care about any award. But funny enough, in that nationals, we won fastest car, we won best team identity, we won best portfolio, and it just came from not having funds, but actually doing creatively and solving issues. And I still remember we placed second in that national, so we were still sent as a full team to world finals. The team that came first, uh, I'm not sure of the actual figures, but as far as I remember, it was around 80 to 90,000 dirhams. Jean was $30,000. The team that came third was almost 15 to $20,000, and we were there with literally $450. That was our budget. We came second because all our goal was just to make a fast car. But we qualified, and not even trying. We eventually got lucky enough to actually go to World Finals the year we thought we wouldn't. So this is where, again, it's that it kept bringing us back, and the only thing that brought us back is not having that trophy, and that was the only reason we tried. Had we not done it, we would probably never been to a World Finals. So that's the kind of the so, yeah.
That's incredible, Ashish, because what I'm hearing from you are so alike business principles. So if you speak to any startup founder or entrepreneur, you talk about this principle of bootstrapping your business until you have enough money in the bank. And it's about that need to be absolutely resourceful. And in order to do that well, you speak about this principle of you went there to do one thing and one thing only, and that's have the fastest car. So that's this laser sharp focus. Um, and that's not unlike business principles. So when you think about these teams who are trying to navigate this whole new concept of budget cap, you're moving from unrestricted budgets to telling these teams you have to work within these limits now. It takes a very resourceful team to work within those boundaries and still come out on top. So thanks for sharing that journey, because it's really interesting. And you spoke about the design part, you spoke about the make part, and of course, there are different types of classes of racing. Do you quickly want to give listeners an overview of what types of classes there are, where you start, and then your super racy design?
So I think when I was doing the project, there were two classes. So one was like an elementary bloodhound class, which was essentially with no wings. You had just the body, but it's still raced under canister. So you have a compressed carbon dioxide cartridge put in the back of the car, and then that trusts your car essentially down the track. The second class was basically you had your professional F1 class where the car resembles a real Formula One car. You design your car based on all the real aerodynamic principles that the professionals used to design the Formula One car. So, and to be honest, I still remember my designs used to look like the 70s and 60s F1 cars with boxy side pods and things. And I used to always wonder why our cars didn't resemble like the current F1 cars, because there was a big difference. And I realized the old one was, what cars look similar to old cars because the old F1 cars were not regulated. And that's the best way to get your performance out of the car. So that's the best, cleanest way to do aerodynamics behind your wheels and things like that. So I was like, okay, so we're on the same path then. So that was the different classes back then. Nowadays, there's with the whole sustainability and things like that, there's so many changes. F1 in schools have adapted and have evolved as well, where instead of using balsa wood that was the actual body material, now it's high density foam. You used to machine those F1 class cars, and
Yeah,
now
I've actually
instead of
got an example here to show the viewers, Ashish.
exactly,
So
yeah,
this is what the model block looks like to those who can see the visual. Um, Comes like that. And Ashish was talking about the gas canister; those would go over there. And from there, from your design software, you get something that mimics a car.
yeah, and it's aerodynamics at the end of the day. It's how you shape your car to cut through the air, and that's what makes the difference. And with that, the entry level class, which was made of wood before, has now changed to become paper cars, which is more sustainable, easy entry point for students to get in, and it's quite popular with younger kids because that's quite visual, and it's still as exciting as F1 in schools because you're still building a car and racing it, and that's what got me into the project anyway. So these are the classes we have currently in global standards.
Yeah, so it starts with a paper-based chassis for 6-year-olds. And then when you kind of 11 years old, you can start working with these model blocks that I was showing earlier. And that model block, once you put it into your design software, starts you looking a bit like that. And those come with some regulations that you can use. And then you move up the classes.
Yeah, and world finals and national events, and that's where the interesting things happen, where you compete with people like you, but have different concepts, different ideas, and you always learn so much from how everyone else thinks and have their own creativity. So
So, Ashish, you're sharing some key points there. So, we're talking about the design, the make, which we've shown you some examples, and then it's the testing. And you spoke earlier about validating your design, validating your concept of speed. And the reason why, my fellow directors and myself thought this was critical for a country like South Africa is because our maths and science pass rates are particularly weak. And if we think back to our school days, you realize that when you saw the practical application of a subject, you immediately became more curious, more interested because you could see where this can be applied in the real world. And so, take something we're passionate about, i.e., Formula One, and plug and play that into an extracurricular program, well, then you possibly have something that could support better maths and science pass rates.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement. I think that's very pretty much the story of how I got through it. I wasn't particularly interested in mathematics or physics. I feel I used to run away from it because I always found it really complicated to get the principles and logic. But at the same time, I was sitting and deriving drag coefficients and using formulas to make my car faster. And I found out is when those things aligned together, when they were connected, I was able to correlate my learning in classroom to actually what it's doing physically with the car. And that's where I could understand it better. And this is where I think I missed out earlier in my initial stages in school, where later on I was able to pick up and I wasn't intimidated with mathematics and physics anymore. I just found it so much more easy to grasp those concepts. And once you understand the logic behind it, which I got through the project, it became easier for me to do those subjects in school.
Ashish, thank you for sharing that. So, we don't have time now to go through all the details, but please go to www.stratastute.com/future ones, and you'll find some information there for you to start getting your teeth into. After that, we can have an exploratory chat. What I want to ask Ashish now is, Ashish, for your school, how did the school implement this program, and how did the teachers get to grips with this level of STEM that they had to support you with?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting because at first I studied in a school which was sort of did CBSE, which is Indian curriculum. Now, traditionally, Indian curriculum is known to be quite academically inclined. It's mostly about studies and doing the coursework than extracurricular activities, let's say. It's always has been supporting act. So when a project like this had come up first, it was equated to cricket or football or some sports activity, but it was so much more than that because there's so much learning that happens. So initially, I think our school struggled to define what it is. So it was just, I think it took passionate teachers to get behind it and drive them. My first two teachers, both my teachers who did the project in school, were actually very passionate about it. They saw the passion. The first one saw the passion in students and how much we were actually excited to do something like this and to have something like that happen at a school and get involved with it. And the second teacher was actually passionate herself into the project as well, and she was involved in different project elements. So holistically, I'd say both of them drove that interest in the school. I have to give credit to them. They were the driving forces behind it. And from there, it was the students getting inspired and getting supported to do those projects in school. Where I still remember the first year when we started the project, it was just two teams, 12 students who were really passionate about drawing or cars, having some interest in F1, wanted to do the project, and we went to the event with our teachers. When we came back, we were sort of showed around assemblies. Our story was shared with all the students, and they saw us doing these things, and they didn't think like it's intimidating anymore. They felt it's someone who's their friend built a car and went racing. It's someone who was in his bus that built a car and did racing and did all these cool things. And then everyone wanted to do it. So naturally, what happened was we had so much level of interest that in the second year, we had almost up to 85 to 100 teams wanting to take part. And mind you, each team were around from 4 to 6 students. And that just shows how kids reciprocated for that initial early adopting strategy and just hearing and looking people doing such projects. What eventually translated was that active participation from kids got them all interested in these subjects, got them all thinking analytically and thinking how to solve problems and thinking what are different concepts and how does it work to make the cars faster, which then correlated to them taking interest in class and doing the subject. So we never had a design and technology subject in our curriculum, but because of a project like this, it gave a lot of those kids who were just tinkering with the idea of building something and probably becoming an engineer now actually really getting their teeth stuck in and building those things. And I can say from my experience now, looking my people who study with me have mostly gone on to do a lot of good things. Doesn't have to be technical. I still know they've gone into marketing and business, but they've carried all these skills and taken that initial stepping stone, used and harnessed and basically were able to achieve bigger things because of just that the right foundation that they had through this project.
Yeah, so the whole system grows and grows with knowledge and innovation through this process, it sounds like. And Ashish, you mentioned something that is, really needed, and that is more females in motorsport. So to hear that your female teachers supported this is really fantastic.
Yeah, I think we were kind enough, and quite often it's said like there's always a strong teacher. So this project, I think we talk about the students and we talk, but it takes a lot of effort from teachers, and you have a lot of passionate teachers actually working behind the scenes to make this happen. Because for us, it's again, we do the project 1 year, 2 year, maybe 4 years, but they're the ones running the show behind what happens essentially and actually bringing it and making it accessible to all the students. So it's kind of like paying it forward, where taking that extra hours after school, preparing the items, preparing the materials, and being involved when actually growing these students, it's all appreciated back. So I think it's a very key point in our team as well. Why our team was so successful, it's because of the support we had.
And it also raises the flag and the bar on your school, adds to its value proposition as a school people want to go to because of this program.
Definitely. And I still remember because of the project and the technological things that we were doing at that time, we pushed our management and committee to actually invest in IT and getting 3D printers, getting CNC machines into our schools, which quite frankly, I still remember I had only access when you go to high level of universities. And even then it's just a primitive tool. So having access to those technology and machinery in school level is such a boost to all our skills, and just gives you that accessibility to learn. Because just taking an example, 3D printers, when I started the project it was unattainable. Only some companies had 3D printing and it was still a lineal technology. Nowadays 3D printing is accessible where you could have it in your home. And that's sort of, while that's the reality in the industrial level and like consumer level, it doesn't translate into schools that well yet because curriculum is still very traditionally designed and that's what's being taught. So having a project like this will then get these sort of schools starting to invest in very entry level machinery, which in turn sort of gives different options and accessibility for students. Because a 3D printer wouldn't just help you design cars, it lets you create and think in a different way where you can design anything and make functional prototypes or architectural things, medical things. So there's a lot of possibilities. It's about opening that sort of mindset that yes, we can do it very accessibly in our school rather than just keeping as random ideas. So I think the investment that followed because of this project and how teachers were supported, and we wanted to grow our ICT. And then that investment later translated into us having access to all these things and all the kids actually being forward thinking.
Yeah, so Ashish, in South Africa, because of exchange rate, this equipment comes in from the UK, and at the moment that exchange rate is 1 to 24, which is pretty high, um, and quite variable. So in South Africa, we're trying to make this model as cost effective as possible for schools. Um, Schools won't necessarily have to buy that level of make capex, but to the schools will engage with. We're trying to work within their budget and see what is possible. So we'll have technical centers around the country for the make test part of it. Ashish, from a sponsor perspective, so you mentioned Puma was your key sponsor, and I'm sure you had others. The school possibly also had its sponsors. What was the return on investment to your sponsors? Can you share some examples?
And I think this again comes down to the learning experience, because at first when he started the project, there we were asked to always approach the sponsor with ROI, return on investment, and actually make it a value proposition. At start, we couldn't see any value proposition because we were just a bunch of kids. And I think that there was some kind of power in that, where we were able to get funding on a low level initially when we were talking about just entry level funds. But as our project grew bigger and we wanted to do more ambitious things, we needed more funding. And that's where we started doing creative ideas where we could make make that value proposition to the sponsors. So first things we actually gave in return was obviously advertisement on our t-shirts and our banners, and that event had a footfall, so we actually found the footfall, we found the newspaper articles and how much advertisement a sponsor would receive in return of investment in our team. The second thing we showed was, apart from this is what everyone was doing at that time, we were all stressed to do. But what my team did different from others was we actually went to the sponsors and tried to find out things that we could change as kids. And we just to give an example, we were able to get some sponsors involved in our school activities, because our school usually has different fairs and annual day and republic program, and our school strength was quite a lot, and these events usually see up to 10 to 20,000 people visiting it. So we sort of tied up with school, where we said, look, we understand school cannot give us funds because it's not in that position. However, school can support us with kind, and they can give us a stall in this event, which for us is wouldn't add so much value. But however, for a company, instead of buying us their own stall, they can share that by sponsoring our team. So this was the best way for company to advertise in that event. At the same time, it's the best way for us to get the fund. So we made that thing happen. So we found a way where it's a win-win for all of us. And that's the other way we found sponsorship. Third was we held seminars in these companies to show them awareness of STEM. And we were giving them different trainings and CAD workshops, which again, it sounds a little bit of child labor, but it's surprising because no one expects kids to have that level of understanding on CAD software. So we were doing workshops and getting like professional employees trained in using CAD and Fusion, things like that. So that was another where a company had to invest in training traditional ways, but they thought we can sponsor this project and support the kids during this process. So these are some innovative ways we came up with to get sponsorship. And I know, judging with you last year, we've seen a lot more innovative things happen lately, where one of the teams found a way to sponsor under underpaid employees to get food coupons, and they ran a scheme where the underprivileged people paid a nominal fee to get food coupons in return, where they actually got sponsored by the company, and they did a package for them, which again, it's being socially responsible, plus reducing food waste and also finding an innovative way to solve genuine social problem. And uh, we've seen the company do beach cleanup with I think one of the sponsors, where on the behalf of the company, the kids actually went down to the beach and cleaned up the ocean to reduce pollution and things. So there's so many things happening where kids can take their own initiative and find ways to get that team or the company to sponsor them by finding a way that works for both people. And that's the charm of this project. It pushes you to think differently.
You know what I love about it, and it's brought it back to my mind, is the intergenerational benefits, because younger people see things with different eyes, and the innovative thoughts and ideas that came from the space of sustainability or ESG was unbelievable. I mean, the innovation we kind of saw in some of these portfolios could well inform very good sustainability strategies on the corporate level, and so that different kind of input from the different generations was particularly interesting, I found.
Yeah, definitely. I think we walked away being empowered and knowing there's so many things the kids are doing, and we can actually incorporate some of our own ideas and do more in our position, I'd say. Would you agree, Roshni?
Ashish, to wrap this conversation up, and I can chat to you for much longer, but it is quite late in Dubai already. Um, what does high performance mean to you? And how did your participation in F1 in schools shape your version of high performance?
I think high performance is repeatability under high pressure, but having incremental growth and incrementally increasing results. That's what I would say high performance is doing something consistently, but every time it's actually improving exponentially as well. So that's high performance. That's what I mean. And doing the project, I think in each and every point there's been a lot of ups and downs. But when you step back and you see the picture, it was all an incremental growth and it was all heading towards somewhere. And I think that's what high performance, that environment developed for me. So this is what I'd say I would consider of high performance, and that's how the whole process. It just in that moment doesn't look like what this is where it's going, but when you step back, when you see the big picture, it's all incrementally growing. But we had the constant pressure of actually achieving it, but we thrived under it. So that's what I'd say. That
Thanks, Ashish. And going back to your team's example, year one, year two, year three, and year four, bang, you won the fastest car competition and you went back despite the setbacks. And that speaks to me about a principle that I'm particularly interested about, and that's resilience. And how does someone achieve success but continue that journey to sustain success? And 6 to 19, or a 4-year journey to the world finals, or 21 and you might get into the Formula One paddock. That's a long commitment someone has to make to get to their dream goal.
and I think this whole process, I think that's one of the biggest skill I've learned from the project is resilience.
Yeah, one can hear it. Ashish, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights. It's always better hearing this from someone who's been part of that journey. And it's amazing that your passion is still burning very much alive. So thank you.
Thank you, Rashni. Thank you for this.
My pleasure. So, to those listening in, whether you're a business leader, a key decision maker, or someone who really wants to be part of the F1 in School South Africa program, please go onto our website, www.stratostu.co.za. You'll see the Future Ones page there. You've got some information to work on. When you're ready, get in touch, give us a call, send us an email, and let's get on an exploratory chat. You don't have to commit right now. These things absolutely take time. So let's build this for you in a way that's cost effective, impactful, and mostly inspiring for our next generation. You can play your part in various ways. Participate as a school or a school pupil. You can sponsor as a corporate sponsor. And if you are a retired or professional person working in the space of motorsports, automotives, or STEM. We invite volunteers. We needing hands at Future Ones to run the program, host the competition. So there's a lot of work to be done. Many ways that you can play a part. So do get in touch. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening in. Good luck to you all for H2. I hope that it is a thriving, successful one. And as we say on this podcast, remember to lift as we rise so that together and with purpose, we can thrive. See you again the next time. Bye bye.